It's just another day in the life of a military wife, and honestly, this week has been a little crazy for me. I've been feeling rather under the weather, so I was thinking about it while bed resting, that I would like to cover one of those textbooks I alluded to in a previous episode. Yes, I'm a bit of a nerd, but this one is very applicable. Military people, as adults, as moms, as parents, as people, we tend to try to do everything at once. We try to pack our lives filled because we just feel like we've got to get everything done, and I am totally one of the people that do that too. I often make myself sick because I overwork myself. Although not often make myself sick. But in this case, I did kind of wear myself out by overextending. And that got me thinking, as I was recuperating from overextending, about this one, which is called Beyond Juggling. And it's about rebalancing your busy life. And I feel like that's something I really need to do. So I wanted to share with you the different techniques and information. It's based on research study done by Kurt Sandholz, Brooklyn Dare, Kathy Buckner, and Dawn Carlson. And I covered it in one of my marriage and family therapy classes in college and absolutely loved it. I've owned like 5 or 6 copies of this book. I keep buying it and giving it away. I keep giving it away and having to buy new ones because people want to keep it. So I figured if I've owned already 5 copies and given so many copies out to different military parents and parents in general, that, it would be worthwhile to share with y'all. So we're going to dig into Beyond Juggling and what that entails and how to rebalance our busy lives. So that said, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so let's just dig right into this. Beyond juggling. Okay, multitasking, juggling, these are things that humans are not inherently good at. Or even possible. The human mind cannot multitask, not really. Not in the sense that most people think you can. You can't actually be focusing on 2 things at the same time. Your brain just doesn't work that way. It's a misconception that is really common in society. And so you're either doing one thing or you're doing the other. And some people will switch really effectively from one task to another. And so they think they're doing 2 tasks at the same time. But multitasking or juggling in and of itself is just something that is not natural for people. Now, if you've ever been and seen a juggler, which juggling is not a skill that I have at all. Trust me. My kids have asked me to, Mom, juggle this. I'm like, no. I will drop that, but I will not be able to juggle that. I've never been able to juggle more than one beanbag at a time. And it's because there's a real technique to it. That way you can keep track of the things you have in the air at the same time. And usually jugglers will typically add one thing at a time until they reach their limit. And then it starts to fall apart. Even a professional juggler, which I actually have a friend who does juggling, will tell you that they have their limit. They have a limit that they cannot pass because they can't focus on more than a certain amount of items at the same time. It's just, we're human. It's how we are. And that is how it is with our life too. If we are trying to focus on too many things all at once and do them all, it's not going to work. And so the 4 individuals who did this research study, they identified different ways of prioritizing things and basically accomplishing a lot of things without having to juggle or multitask. And I'm going to break it down into the main strategies that they teach, which there's 5 techniques that they teach, which is alternating, outsourcing, bundling, tech flexing, and simplifying. And alternating is going between 2 tasks, taking things at different times in your life. And how this can manifest itself as a military spouse. And I've had to think about this a lot because alternating is not one that I thought I was very good at. But alternating, I realized is something I actually have been doing in my life. So when my husband and I first got married, I was in school. And so that was my focus, was finishing up my degree and everything like that. And I finished it up just before we had our first kid. And I worked all the way up until about a month before I had our first son. And then I stayed at home because it was actually cheaper for me to stay at home with our son than for me to go back to work, because the cost of childcare was just prohibitively expensive. And so I've been a stay-at-home mom for a while now. And now that all my kids are in school, I have started making other professional goals for myself. And one of which was this podcast. And there's some other ones I've been working towards. And so that's a good example of alternating. It's a time of life thing. While my kids were little and needed my undivided attention for the majority of the day and weren't in school, I took a break. I took a break from my career. I took a break from things so that I could be the stay-at-home mom they needed, because also during that time period, my husband was gone for a whole year, and actually a lot of time. So I actually know some other moms who they will work except for when their husband gets deployed. If their husband gets deployed, then they take a break off of work so that they can be a more present parent for their children when they're down to one parent. And that would be a good example of alternating in a military life. There are times as military spouses we will have jobs or work outside of the home or volunteer. And then there's times where we will not, because we are trying to dedicate more time to our kids. So alternating is one of those really great tasks. Help just knowing that you don't have to have everything right away. I think that there are times where we want to be everything and do everything, and we don't have to be Superwoman. We don't have to have this amazing, stellar career and be this always present soccer mom and, everything all at once. We can rotate between those roles. We don't need to try to do them all at the same time. And that's what alternating entails. Okay, so the next topic is outsourcing. And outsourcing is a technique I have used a lot during my husband's deployments, TDYs, all of those fun times when it's just me. Because we've had rather large properties at different times, and I do not enjoy mowing the lawn. I love gardening. I do not like mowing the lawn. So outsourcing is what it sounds like. It's when you decide that there are certain tasks that you are responsible for that you are willing to outsource or pay someone else to do, so that you can prioritize your time and energy on things that matter most to you. So I like having a nice yard. I don't always want to mow my yard. Shoveling snow is something I don't particularly enjoy and have not always been physically up to doing. So those are things I have paid people to do in the past, is mow my lawn for me, shovel my drive for me, things like that. Because when I've got a bunch of little kids, it's just, I don't know. It's just not my thing. I know some people love it. I had one friend who she absolutely loved mowing her lawn because there was a chance to get out of the house, away from her kids, and her kids would leave her alone and she could put on a music or, podcast or whatever and have some me time. Dude, if that's your idea of me time, go for it. But for me, that's one of those things I'm willing to outsource. A friend of mine had a brand new baby, and her husband got deployed, and she had 5 kids. And so they decided that they were going to prioritize getting someone to help take care of the house. And I was so grateful that she admitted that to me, because it made me feel less guilty when my husband was gone for an extended period of time and I was having health problems. I didn't feel as guilty outsourcing and getting some help with the dishes and the tidying up. So, you know what? Sometimes you need someone. Paying someone to clean your house sometimes is one of the biggest rewards you can give yourself. As military spouses, we have so much on our plates, trying to juggle careers or family life and everything, and never knowing if our spouse is going to be home. Sometimes we just need to outsource. So if that means you need to have someone else mow your lawn or shovel your snow or walk your dog or tidy up your house, then do it. Don't stress about it. It's okay. It's all right to do that. The next technique that they talk about is bundling. And bundling is something I have briefly mentioned in another episode. And this whole episode feels kind of like deja vu, because I feel like I was going to include all this information in another episode and I didn't. And because I was planning on it, now I feel like I have. So if this is a little repetitive, I've been under the weather. I'm doing my best here. But bundling. Now, this is going to be where people are going to go, wait, you said you can't do 2 things at once. There are some things you can do 2 things at once. And that's why I said it's with exceptions. So multitasking is not a thing. Bundling is. And the difference is, with bundling, you are purposefully combining 2 things that are similar or compatible. So the typical and traditional explanation for bundling, or at least the one that's used in the book that I've seen, is my dad would go on business trips a lot. And he would take my mom with him. And so when he was in his business meetings, my mom would be sightseeing. And so they would get time together, and it would be a nice little vacation, the 2 of them. But my mom would also get her own little personal time. So it was a really great bundling experience for them, because it was a 2 birds and 1 stone thing. My mom wasn't always getting left at home and missing out, and it was less expensive because my dad's travel expenses were covered by his employer. So that is an example of bundling that is a traditional, perspective. Bundling in my life looks a little bit different. So as a military spouse, it's important to, be getting exercise or doing different things, but also you've got responsibilities at the same time, or you want to socialize, but you've got things you need to do. So there's a group of us that will walk our dogs together. Our dogs need to be walked. Currently, I don't live in a place where I have a large backyard like I have previously. And so I could walk the dog by myself, which is fine. Then that would still be getting met, that need and that responsibility. However, if I walk my dog with my friends, then I get to hang out with my friends while walking my dog. So that's a bundling sort of thing. So there are going to be times where there are things you can bundle, you can do with someone else. And for me, I find a lot of my socializing becomes bundling for me. So, for example, we have a park group that'll get together in the summer, and the kids will go play at the park and the moms will talk. I'm getting my socializing in, my kids are getting their park time in, and everyone's happy. Or walking the dog with my friends when they walk their dogs. There's just different ways of bundling those things. It's still nice to occasionally have dedicated girl time, those girl nights. And so that would be a time when you don't want to bundle, where you want to just have time with your friends. But if those aren't going to be very frequent because life, then you can fit socialization in another way. So that is the basics of bundling. And I'm really going through a lot of these topics very quickly. So if there's one you're particularly interested in, please let me know. And I can do a whole episode on it. Trust me. I took a whole semester class on this. So yeah, I've got enough material. We can dive into this a whole lot more. The next one is tech flexing. So tech flexing is when you use technology to simplify a task or make something easier. And I remember when we were discussing this in my class, my professor each morning, he'd give us a situation or a scenario and like, okay, using the principles we're studying, how could you find a solution to this problem? And one of them was his family. He had a really important obligation he couldn't miss with him and his wife. And it happened to be at the exact same time as their son's basketball game. And he's like, we've been talking about it as a family and trying to apply these principles, but I want to see what ideas you guys can come up with. And one of the ideas that someone in my class came up with was a tech flexing idea. It was, well, why doesn't one of their older siblings take them to the basketball game with whichever siblings can come, and they record the basketball game, and then as a family later on, you sit down and watch it and have popcorn and get the play-by-play and his insights. Oh, and this is what I was thinking at this time, and this is how I felt, and that way he gets to be a part of you watching his game too. And our teacher loved that idea. He thought that was a brilliant suggestion, and that wasn't something they had come up with as a family when discussing how to solve this scheduling conflict. And so that is a good example of tech flexing. It's using technology to help solve our problems or make our lives more effective. One way that I tech flex is I have alarms. I have alarms that go off on my phone, and they are set to go off every time I need to take kids somewhere or pick kids up from somewhere. Another tech flexing example is I love having a planner that is paper. I just like writing with a paper planner. It makes, me happy somehow. But my husband is very into Google Calendars. And I've realized that my insistence on using an old-fashioned planner and his using a digital planner meant that we were double booking ourselves a lot at the beginning of our marriage. So I switched to doing both, which kind of sounds a little ridiculous sometimes, and it feels a little ridiculous sometimes, but tech flexing has ended up being a blessing because we have a Google Calendar that we share that we can both add things to. We are less likely to double book ourselves now, and we're more aware of what's going on and with each other's lives and what obligations we each have so that we're not overextending ourselves, and that's been a huge blessing. So that's an example of tech flexing, but there's lots of different ways you can tech flex. During the pandemic, we would do long distance dates over technology like Zoom with our friends and play games like Jackbox Party Pack. That's tech flexing. We were using technology to be able to solve a problem. So because we couldn't get together and have a game night with our friends, we used technology. And tech flexing is something that we use a lot as military families, I think, to meet our needs. My husband, because he's been gone so much, we have really invested in smartphones and finding internet and cell phone providers that have good international policies and plans and coverage so that he can be involved in the day-to-day of things. There's also an app called Marco Polo that we are particularly fond of, and what we did with it was we could take a little video, and then whenever he had time, he would watch the video and then take a little video response and send it back, and I could show it to the kids. And when he's in a different time zone, that's a really great way for him to kind of have a conversation or share things with the children, because oftentimes he's awake when we're asleep and vice versa. So tech flexing, using things like Marco Polo are really very helpful. The next one is just simplifying, cutting things out of your life. And I think simplifying is something that, oh, good golly, this is something my husband nags at me to do all the time, because simplifying is not my strong suit. I'm really great at bundling. I'm great at tech flexing. I'm really great at outsourcing and all those other ones. When it comes to simplifying my life, I'm just not an expert. It is not my strong point. But basically, it's minimizing your responsibilities, paying your bills electronically, just cutting out the extra stuff. And one thing I really like about I do pay my bills electronically. And I feel like as a military family, that is huge. The less of my budget I have to do on my own, and the more it just happens automatically, the better. I first ran into this when my husband was in basic and AIT, and I was pregnant and had a little kid, and it was just, I was so exhausted all the time. And so being able to have everything on auto pay, having everything set up so all my bills would get paid on time without me having to really worry about them. And on top of it, being able to have all my savings come out of my checking and go into the proper savings accounts. You can set that up. I don't know if everyone knows that, but that has been one of the best life hacks ever. We are really great at saving money because that's one of the first things we do, and it's automatic. We have it set up so it does it all by itself, and I don't have to remember. And one less thing to remember is awesome. I still go back and make sure that it happened, but at the same time, it's not something I actually have to set a time to do. So that's always really great. The other thing that they've talked about with simplifying, and this is something I really work on, is decluttering. I feel like as military families, I don't even know how we accumulate everything we do. I swear, I don't feel like we have that much stuff, and then we move, and then I'm like, oh my goodness. So something I have started doing on a yearly basis is decluttering our clothes. Our family size is set. We are probably not having any more kids. So we have been getting rid of baby stuff and getting rid of toddler stuff. And I have been getting rid of old clothes that are in good condition, but I just won't wear anymore. We've been donating them, and that really helps a lot. That simplifying your life so that when you do have those moves is a good thing. Decluttering toys. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe how many toys my children have. It is ridiculous. But we've gone through that with the kids and been like, okay, pick 5 toys that you don't play with and you don't want anymore. Let's get rid of them. And we've told our kids flat out, you want birthday presents? Let's get rid of baby toys you don't play with anymore. So that is a really great way to just simplify your life in general. Sometimes also simplifying your entertainment and your holiday celebrations. As military families, we're not often near our families for major holidays. And for me, that was devastating because I grew up with this large Irish Italian family and we got together all the time and we were just, it's like 50 people in a house. And I'm probably exaggerating. Maybe it was 50 people. It felt like 50 people. But anyway, we were all together and it was this big, loud, crazy thing all the time because that's us. And I realized once we had our first Christmas in the military, it can be really quiet and very lonely. And I wanted to do this big, huge, loud, crazy thing that I was used to. And so we tried for several holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Easter, inviting people over, and everyone always had plans or was out of town, or it just was a lot of stress for me and I wasn't able to relax and enjoy the holiday. And finally, I remember one Christmas, I didn't invite a whole bunch of people over. We didn't plan a whole lot. We did some things with our kids. I don't think we completely neglected them. We did do stuff, but we did stuff as a family, and I didn't throw this big, huge dinner party for 5 families. And we had I think we had like a single soldier over, and that was it. And it was great. It was awesome. Simplifying our Christmas was one of the best things I ever did because I can't be with my family. So why stress myself out and just invite a whole bunch of other people and give myself a whole bunch of work? Sometimes just playing with my kids, just sitting reading a book, just having some quiet is the best thing in the world. And that was a really profound experience for me. So this year, we've joked about back and forth. This was an idea we got from a friend, was having Thanksgiving at the DFAC and then getting people together for dessert and games. Because why not? I mean, the DFAC has pretty good food for Thanksgiving, and why make this massive, huge Thanksgiving dinner for just my family and inviting a whole bunch of people over for a huge Thanksgiving dinner is crazy, complicated. I've done it. Why not just go eat dinner at the DFAC, get the good Thanksgiving dinner? You didn't have to make it and spend all the money on it. And then come and have the desserts and games, which is what really everyone wants to do, is socialize and have dessert and pie. So yeah, that's an idea we're thinking of for Thanksgiving. But anyway, I am super excited to have been able to share all of this with you. I really do love this book, Beyond Juggling. And I really feel like this research is applicable and helpful. They're great tools that have allowed me to rebalance my life. Again, I'm not perfect at it, because if I was perfect at it, I wouldn't have extended myself and made myself sick this last week. But I'm working on it. And skills are something you have to work on. So, all of that said, we're actually approaching 200 listens, and I'm really just grateful for all the support and I'm getting from you guys. I really do want to do a special 4th of July episode. I would like you to please send in stuff that you'd like to share. And that said, I feel like I'm just going to wrap it up today. I am your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife.